For years, outdoor brands have shouted to the skies, each claiming their gear is better, tougher, and smarter than the next. They bragged about seams and fabrics, about features you didn't need. And when the world started caring about the planet, those same brands tried to have it both ways, making the same old stuff, but slapping on a green label to soothe the conscience. But Livesen isn't like the rest. Livesen was born to help you strip it all down, to live with intention. Own less, live more. It's a simple creed, but simplicity is what matters most. We've been timeless since before we even had a name. Livesen grew out of a deep hunger for freedom, a love for this earth and the people who walk it. We don't obsess over the gear. We focus on the life the gear lets you live. Retailers, think on this. How many brands do you carry that are cut from the same old cloth, filling racks with sameness? Couldn't your floor use something different? A brand that doesn't just sell clothes, but sells a way of being? Livesen gear is built to last, to be repaired, to stick with your customers for a lifetime of trails, peaks, and adventures. In the Ozarks, we have an honest, gritty sensibility with a sharp edge of style. It's what happens when the love of the land meets a modern streak. And if you're wondering, Livesen's founder, Andrew Gibbs Dabney, can explain it better than anyone. Look, here's the straight talk. We believe in Livesen enough to put our name on it. Send in your Fall 25 preseason orders by January 15th. Mention this podcast, and you'll get the Rock Fight preseason special, a clean 2% off, stacked on top of Livesen's own preseason program discounts. Don't wait. Stock the brand that's burning hot in the outdoor world, the brand that's here for the long haul. Be a rock fighter, not just another retailer. Livesen. Own less, live more. Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True. It's Monday, and today we're going to talk about the top 10 outdoor industry rock fights of 2024 with Eoin Comerford and producer Dave. But before we get to that, gotta ask you, have you subscribed to Rock Fight's weekly newsletter? If not, you're hearing this on Monday, you still have time to get all that original Rock Fight content before the next one comes out tomorrow on Tuesday. Head to rockfight.co and click join the mailing list to sign up. And if you're new around here, and this is the first time you're listening to the end of the year podcast, subscribe to the Rock Fight. You want to hit follow on the podcast app you're listening to us on. Just hit that button, hit follow. Really helps out the show. Really important for you to subscribe. It'd be great. And also make sure you come back on Wednesday where Justin Hausman and I are going to run through the top 10 adventure-y sort of rock fights of 2024, the more adventure topics that we talked about here on the show. But before we get into that, we got to get through today's show. So let's start the show.
Welcome to the Rock Fight, Rock Fight, Rock Fight.
You're listening to Rock Fight Radio.
A ball sock for bold times. It's no ordinary sock. It does what it says it does.
Fit. Our socks marine, oh, but they don't fall down. This sock fits better than your sock. A funky shaped sock that's an elegant solution to budging in the toes, heel slippage and falling down at the ankle. A sock with patented knit structures that achieve whole foot comfort that you can really feel like, whoa. A sock that acts like a base layer. A sock that's all about the base layer. A thermoregulating, moisture-wicking, body-forming base layer. Fits is a sock that fits better than your sock, maybe even the best sock ever. It really could be Fits, a bold sock for bold times. It's no ordinary sock. It does what it says it does. Fit, 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 fit. It really could be Fits layer. It really could be Fits. Better than your
Welcome
sock,
back to
maybe.
Rock Fight Radio. I'm DJ CT, and that was Bold Sock, the newest track from Fits. Fits has been knitting a hit since 2014 with their patented whole foot comfort approach to making fine gauge merino performance socks. With their custom fit feel that's like nothing else, they make some of the best basics in the biz. Retailers, you only have 2 days left to get your pre-order in by December 31st. That's New Year's Eve, and you'll get yourself free shipping. All right. Let's get back to the show. All right, we're back with Rock Fight's consigliere, Eoin Comerford. Producer Davis here. Happy holidays, boys. We got one more to get through, and we're almost there.
No, we are. I think when is the moratorium on Christmas music? Is it officially today, or was that yesterday?
I saw someone say 6 p.m. on December 25th, and I co-signed that heartily.
Yeah. Good luck with that one.
You're a hater.
Okay.
You're just a straight up holiday hater.
I disagree. I think I am such an enthusiast that I want to appreciate it in its purest form.
That is the grossest spin I have ever even tried to swallow. Nope.
There's 12 songs that have been covered 82,000 times. They
Hater.
get old after a while.
Hater.
Okay?
Hater.
I know Owen's on my team with this. So.
Other than the Pogues, that's about the only one that I can keep coming back to.
All right, guys. Well, today we're going to run through the top 10 stories that we covered here on the Rock Fight, and probably make some ask some questions, make some predictions heading into 2025. I took a look at the list of our outdoor industry stories, and these were the most listened to episodes by the Rock Fight listener base, and we're going to go 10 through 1. So I'm going to do a little recap when the episode came out, what we talked about, and then toss it over to you guys for a little commentary or, again, predictions, what we think may happen. So coming in at number 10, which actually I thought this was going to be higher on the list, if I'm being honest. We got a lot of engagement on this episode, which came out on October 28th, and it was our zombie brands conversation. Notably, we talked mostly about Marmot. Marmot took a few strays from us this year. This was probably the biggest one. On this episode, we talked about sort of big and notable brands that are still around but aren't as relevant as they used to be. Like I said, we got a lot of mileage out of the zombie brands thing this fall, and I don't think the concept of the zombie brand is going to go anywhere anytime soon. As some of the bigger brands maintain a level of size from a revenue standpoint that they have to be talked about, but they also will probably continue to descend further into irrelevancy from a user and retailer perspective. So let me toss it over to you guys. I mean, what do you guys think about this? Will some of the more notable zombie brands either come back, maybe die off in 2025? Will this conversation continue? Owen, what do you think?
By the nature of being defined as a zombie brand, they will continue lumbering forward, half dead. So I think the answer is no. Maybe some might join them. I would say, though, the interesting thing for me is I've actually now heard the term zombie outdoor brand, multiple times from people I know in the industry. And maybe it's just I'm in the same echo chamber with all of you people. But so it's become part of the zeitgeist, my new word of the year, zeitgeist. Maybe rock fight is becoming part of the new outdoor zeitgeist.
It is funny the way some people didn't quite get it too. I got a lot of defenses for Kelty, which may be the prototypical zombie brand of like a really relevant specialty outdoor brand that is now owned by, was it XL owns them, I believe, and are sort of, I'm sure the stuff they make is fine, but when's the last time you thought of Kelty? And, but they still make this incredible stuff. Like, yeah, I believe you that they do, but they're just, I throw Chaco into the mix and they're still huge, right? They're everywhere. But it's like, when the last time you really thought of Chaco? Dave, what do you think about the whole zombie brand thing as we head into 2025?
Well, I'm a fan of the zombie brand designation. Like Owen said, by sheer nature, they just don't go anywhere. They're here, they're lasting, and I think that sums up, frankly, a good percentage of our industry or any industry. And really you can kind of parse between the it brands and the stable brands and the zombie brands. There are different kind of classifications and brands move in and out. If they've been around long enough, they can kind of hit all three at certain times. What is Keen? Where does that fit? Is it an it brand?
Keen's not a zombie.
Is it a stable?
No.
Is it a zombie?
But
right?
Yeah, they're not a zombie brand.
It's it's the Pareto principle, right? 20% of the brands are going to get 80% of the attention.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're fighting for all there. And it's kind of like regulation. You just don't want to get sent down. Right. And the zombies kind of kind of that classification.
Okay. I think Dave has just come up with a new theme here. We're gonna have a relegation. We're gonna have a relegation show as to who gets promoted and who gets
Premier
relegated.
League. That's right. Mm-hmm. There you go.
I guess the last thing on the zombie is it's like, what really puts any of these brands down? Like as zombies, you can quick shot to the head and they go away. You look at a brand like a K2 or even Marmot and the amount of times they change hands, and it's just like someone's always going to see some level of upside in one of these brands, and they kind of just keep going.
But then there are the Vasks, right? And that whole conversation about those that get truly relegated to the graveyard brands.
Well, and it also speaks to brand value, in terms of the brand strength, right? These brands were once it brands, and it's the basis of that strength, often what keeps them around, in terms of, their product. They're not innovating. They're not bringing things to the market. Doesn't mean that it's bad product. It means it's not going anywhere. But this brand strength has kept it around longer than its expiration date.
Right. A controversy this year could be that Patagonia got relegated from it brand to the vast middle.
All right, well, we can spend all day talking about zombie brands. Let's move on to the number 9 story. Number 9 on September 2nd, which was Outside Goes Social. And on this episode, we reacted to Outside launching an integrated social media platform into the Outside website and other apps that they own, like Gaia. At the time, I thought this was not a great idea. I think it might be even worse now. Yesterday, I actually signed up for an account and spent some time playing around on the platform, knowing we were going to have this conversation. It's pretty rough. It goes everything from very single digit engagement to a few hundred pieces of user engagement. But, it just really made me appreciate how much work it really takes to create a good social media platform. I mean, obviously the big players in the space, they put a lot of time and money and energy and years into it. And that's why we all use them. So this just feels very out of the box. But it kind of brought me to the point of it really feels like that may not matter, because it seems like Outside is sort of in this sort of expand at all costs mode, right? The festival's the one thing. It looks like they're taking real care in how they grow it, but there are rumors that persist that their goal is to continue to add subscriptions to Outside Plus so that they can achieve a certain valuation. And people are talking about the company going public. So I guess the question for you guys, will Outside announce its IPO in 2025?
Personally, I don't think so, because they don't have that traction yet. Think back to the original investment thesis behind Outside, right? They wanted to become really the media giant of the outdoor industry. And back then, I think it was 21 that it was all kind of coming together. That's when they bought Outside. At that point, media companies were sort of, I guess, maybe at their zenith relative to valuations. You had BuzzFeed, for example, go public that year at a $1.5 billion valuation. How much is BuzzFeed worth today? About $110 million. So they've lost.
I would have thought lower, but yeah.
But they've lost over 90% of their value. Same thing with
Right.
Vice News, right? Vice News was $5.7 billion at one point, sold in bankruptcy last year for $350 million. Again, more than 90% off from its high. So really, they're struggling to find that, what is that anchor that they can hook onto relative to a big valuation driver. Subscriptions and social media obviously drive way higher valuation than being the media whatever of whatever. So I think that's a factor.
I think that's kind of what led me to the question. Is it just seems like they add MapMy, that obviously Gaia, all of these sort of platforms. They continue to bring these different solutions to try and expand their presence in the community. Obviously, the festival to a certain degree. So I think there's some credence to maybe what their goals are. But I think you make a really good point. Is even if they have a more maybe stable base or a stable of products, can they achieve that sort of super high level, like $1 billion valuation? I don't know. I think that's going to be tough.
I think it is going to be tough.
Going back to what to Eoin was talking about, though, the trends among niche media, like news media, which is essentially what they are, is not great. So they've done everything they can to pivot from being just a niche media to this broader technology, social platform,
smartly.
what you want to call it. So I think that is the play for sure. But it does bring in two new massive challenges of, does your platform usable? Is the interface seamless? Like that. Now you're a technology company. That's got to be primary, and it's not primary. Secondly, in terms of, and our people, let's call it user satisfaction. I mean, that's always, are you appealing to your customer? But man, it's really evident on a social platform whether they're not. They're either there or they're not. So they're either engaged and liking it or they're not, and there's no middle ground. And I think that's going to be their issue now, that they've traded one set of problems for new ones, and I don't know if they're necessarily shaped to deal with those problems. Like we said, I still think it's the right thing to do, to figure out what that balance of content and platform is in this new age, to create a walled garden, as we talk about, or this ecosystem. But we'll see.
If the social platform was not a great move from a strategy or a content perspective, I think adding MapMy was probably a really good move by them, right? Like that is an established, mature platform that people use. You're going to get a ton of boosts in subscribers of people who aren't going to abandon you to slot them right alongside of Gaia. You have all these different options. A little more probably stable versus like, hey, let's build our own social media platforms.
Right.
And look, it could work out. I think you're right. They have the advantage they have is like who's their competitor. Like, who's going to do what they're doing before they will? And Like, it would have to be somebody probably from outside the outdoor industry who really wanted to try it inside the outdoor industry. And who's that going to be?
Also, how do you also build a whole set of benefits for being a subscriber, where it isn't just you get access to special content, let's say online. Do you get access to backstage at the outdoor fest or whatever?
Right.
Special access on MapMy, all these other things. So you bundle all these things together. Maybe there's a founder's card type of approach where you get all these special deals and discounts and offers and access to all these outdoor things that you wouldn't otherwise get. So I think if they can build all that value together, they might have something.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually the Outside Festival may be a big part of the piece, because they're obviously only serving one market or one region by being in Colorado. You could see an outdoor fest in the Northeast, in the Southwest, Pacific Northwest, and a lot of those same bands would play, or different bands and local bands, but bringing outside people together in that kind of a format could be really interesting on a national basis.
Yeah, if you were betting on the future of the Outside Festival or one of these trade shows that we talk so much about, like, where are you putting your money?
Outside Festival. It's about the consumer.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, 100 times out of 100, right? All right, number 8 on the list was on May 6th, and this was Patagonia's new movie. I may talk about this episode on Wednesday with Justin Hausman, because a lot of that episode was about some Everest news and some other things that we talked about. But in that episode, I also gave my review of Shitthropocene, which was the Patagonia movie that they put out right around the same time as they launched their Fashion is None of Our Business campaign. And I wanted to use this to kind of get a temperature check on Patagonia from both of you. I mean, I think there's still this sort of universally accepted leader brand in our space and most relevant brand in the outdoor space. But after our conversations the past couple of weeks about, up and coming brands like Livson and all the direct to consumer brands we covered last week, I mean, you think Patagonia, can they maintain that top dog status? I mean, do you feel like they're vulnerable at this point? Owen, what do you think?
Yes, I do think they're vulnerable. Their sustainability bona fides obviously are unmatched, and I think a lot of brands are very envious of that, and they try to do things around sustainability, but you can't out Patagonia in many cases. But the problem is innovation. Innovation is just lacking at Patagonia. What was their last big product line? Nanopuff? And that was introduced in 2009. I looked it up. 15 years ago.
Yeah, and then they did Nano Air.
Oh,
but I mean, even then, that was not like that, Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's nothing. You're right.
Right. So part of the whole rationale behind Patagonia is, hey, we want to bring out product, and yes, we want it to be, we're not in the fashion business. We're not going to just keep churning colors and styles and all that stuff. Great. But if you work off of this thought process that by us selling a product, it's better than somebody buying something else, shouldn't you be competing so that you are providing alternatives to people who are being innovative and putting new product out into the market?
I think you hit it right on the head. The lack of innovation means that they're a lifestyle company, so they're just the latest LL Bean or Eddie Bauer. And that's no disrespect in that sense.
They told me that fashion is none of their business.
Right. Well, those brands have been operating on that premise for a long time. So I think that they've got a look. And look, this all came from that kind of video that they put out. And again, attempt at humor, and
that was so bad.
The irony of talking about anti-consumption with a 45-minute ad. I take a little bit different. I give them kudos for bravery. That's tough. Humor is hard. Not taking yourself so seriously is I still think that's the right way. Now, their customer base is going to be so polarized by that. Half of their customer is just humorless at their core, and so they're just not going to find it funny at all. And then the other half are just fans, then they're going to love it. And I fall somewhere in between there. I good on you for trying that. I think keep trying stuff. I think I would like to see more of that. Because just even the levity, because everything they do is so documentary and nonfiction. Again, great part of the brand. That doesn't mean that there's not room to have some fun and to not be so darn serious. I mean, it's kind of like their color palette. It's the same thing over and over and over. I'd like to see something a little bit different, a little bit unique, innovation, if you will. But yeah, interesting question for sure.
All right, next story was on September 23rd. We talked about secondhand websites around here that caused quite a stir because we had a reaction to a flurry of branded re-commerce sites that launched this past fall. There was this week or two where we saw, I think it was Fjallraven, Jones, and Flylow launch secondhand shops, while Code Epoxy launched an upcycled collection. This is another rock fight where I sort of shifted my position from where I started. I admit it. I think there's a bit of a box-checky vibe to the amount of re-commerce sites launching, and I'd prefer to see sort of an agreed-to strategy that benefits the consumer when it comes to the outdoor industry and secondhand. However, I've been convinced by folks like, Aaron over at Gear Trade and folks like that that the more brands participating in this, kind of shoves us in the right direction. So throwing it out to you guys, what do you think we can and what do you think we should expect as it pertains to secondhand in 2025 for the outdoor industry? Owen, what do you think?
Hopeful, I guess. I don't know if it'll happen, but I'm hopeful that people will really take this more seriously as a business and not as a sustainability initiative, a business initiative, i.e., actually using used gear to attract and retain customers, specifically younger customers who are maybe priced out of being able to buy new gear, and who are buying Shein and Temu and all this disposable crap, who could actually get into and experience high quality outdoor gear through the used market and then potentially move to new. Who knows? Maybe they stay in used. That's great too. And to me, the differentiator is whether the brand has, done the whole peer-to-peer network where they're not touching anything and it's just some separate part of the site that nobody ever sees. That's, to me, is you've checked a box. Please go away. You don't really have a used gear business. If you're actually in the business where you're trying to drive sales of that, promoting it throughout your site, promoting it in the onboarding funnel, on the product page, working with folks like Aaron at Gear Trade, where there's an actual marketplace for used gear, that to me is real used gear businesses, and that's the way the industry needs to go.
Yeah, I think you hit it in terms of it's the business model. I love the idea that it's an entryway into brands for people. I think that makes a lot of sense and really could push that as a model. Frankly, I think it's no different than 30 years ago. The branded store was seen as the death of the retail partner, right? We can't have both. And sure enough, no, they actually helped retail sales. Or e-commerce is going to wipe away in real life. Like, it's just each one kind of, we see the what's not going to work is kind of, but then it ends up enlarging the ecosystem. I think this is just another avenue in that kind of vein that we need to adopt. And there might be some overlap at first. Maybe it's not perfectly efficient, especially from the back end, but more the merrier. We've got to get in there and just change the way we're doing business for sure.
All right, next up we had on September 30th. The episode was titled, "Is there a consumer shift coming to the outdoor industry?" And this episode contained listener responses to the secondhand website episode that we just spoke about. But mostly this episode is where we discuss the quote by a large outdoor retailer CEO who spoke to a consultant and suggested that, quote, "a notable shift in consumer behavior is on the horizon." The CEO noted that consumers are now more price conscious than ever before and much more inclined to pursue bargain or discounted products, even at the risk of sacrificing quality. We inferred in that episode that this quote probably came from REI, and this is not the last time REI will come up during this episode. But aside from them, do we agree that a shift is coming? Is it here? Is the expansion of Sierra proof of this? Will the coming tariffs exacerbate this? Like, what do we think about this sort of mindset? Yeah, Owen, let's start with you.
Oh, it's here. It's been here. Let's be honest. The consumers are going to take whatever discounts you're going to throw their way. The question is, how desperate are we as an industry to be needing discounts to prime the pump, right? So that's a big part of it. Also, by the way, if you look at Circana data, the average price of the industry has increased 20% since before COVID, right? So we have all of this inflation at the same time that people actually have, shrinking amounts of credit available, more inflation elsewhere in more essentials that they have to buy. So they don't have the buying power that they used to have, and the stuff's more expensive. So the time is here. The time is now. Obviously, with the big inventory glut, people have used discounts to push that inventory. Can we get away from that in the future? I don't know. It's tough.
We talked a couple weeks about like Academy and folks like that. Why do you think maybe they're not doing better if that's the case? You know, I know they've had not quite as a good run as like a Dick's. You know, do you think that, or do you think that just that time is coming when they will be doing better because of this specifically?
Academy specifically, just because two reasons. One is their customer is that at that lower end of the household income bracket, and so they have even less disposable income. So that's really the big issue. The second is that they're not getting the hot brands that are driving the business that is
Right.
there. So I don't think so. The interesting thing is actually that the OIA just released their sort of thoughts for the year end, literally within the last week or so. And quoting from their report, it said, one notable trend is a shift from high-ticket outdoor gear, such as kayaks and camping equipment, to more casual and affordable products. Consumers are prioritizing items like road running shoes, casual apparel, and insulated cups. These products cater to the growing number of casual outdoor participants who enjoy activities like hiking, biking, or park visits, but don't require specialized gear. So that's what our own industry association is saying.
But hasn't that been the case for a long time? I feel like those have always been the drivers, like of the last couple decades even, right? I mean, I feel like that's what you would see when you go to trade shows and whether people would expand into these other lines or have these extra things. You know, it's running shoes, casual apparel, and accessories.
It's accelerated, I would say, since COVID.
Well, guys, I got some important news. The fact is we're halfway through this list, which means, you know what that means, right?
What does it mean?
It's time for our weekly segment. It means it's time. Thank you, Owen.
Is there more?
Thanks. It's time for our weekly segment to make sure you're getting more out of the outdoors. It's time for More with Thermore. And I like to think we saved our best for last at the end of the year here, because today on More with Thermore, we're featuring a truly unique jacket from a unique brand. I'm talking about 66 North's Drowngar. Great name. Sorry, I think that's maybe my favorite product name I've said on this podcast in 2024, the Drowngar.
Live on
Most
an
of
island,
66 North's products.
You live on an island in the North Atlantic, and it's called the Drowngar. Yikes!
Yeah.
Well,
it's a pronunciation guide on their website. It's written Drangar, but it's pronounced Drowngar.
Most of their products
say it
could
that way,
serve
too.
as adventure titles for the Dungeon Masters D&D night at Tuesday at the game shop. There's no doubt
Well,
about
this is
it.
a jacket. If you were the dungeon master and you had a long game, it's
Dude,
outside. You want to wear
welcome to
the Drowngar, which
That's
is a
right.
vegan puffer, by the way. It looks like a down coat, but it's powered by 640 fill power grams of Thermore Eco Down. And like we've told you before, Eco Down is the sustainable and vegan alternative to down feathers. It's a synthetic insulation made from 100% post-consumer plastic bottles. And in the case of Icelandic brand 66 North's Drowngar, this is the coat. Sorry, you got to say it that way. This is the coat that you want to wear to keep you warm on cold, cold days. Because whether it's making amazing new garments or staying warm and safe out on the trail, you can do more with Thermore. All right, let's get back into the list here. With August 12th, 2024, we talked about EMS sells for a song. And on this episode, producer Dave and I talked about the bankruptcy sale of Eastern Mountain Sports to Mountain Warehouse for $10 million, 2 years after it had sold for $70 million. And now Eastern Mountain Sports is down to 7 stores, which is notable, like we talked about at the time, because it leaves large swaths of New England and the Mid-Atlantic without an outdoor specialty presence. So, this is a funny one because of the history of Eastern Mountain Sports and I think it was like 8 or 9 times it has changed hands. It's just the cat that continues to survive. What predictions do we have for either EMS going forward with their new owner, or even who may fill those gaps created by shrinking that chain to 7 doors? What do you think, Owen?
So perhaps in response to the conversation on this very podcast where we wondered, are they going to move towards a Mountain Warehouse, which is much more of a value play, almost 100% private brand, yada, yada? Were they going to basically take EMS and make it the North American Mountain Warehouse? Perhaps in response to that, they actually came out with a press release, and they said, this is the founder, Mark Neal, said, "We plan to retain the iconic EMS brand, which has a great heritage and DNA and resonates with huge numbers of longstanding customers. We will also continue to work with the highest quality and best-known outdoor brands in the world to stabilize and then grow the business." So they're saying, A, we're keeping EMS, and B, we are looking to keep other brands. So they've answered that question. They also went on to say that they plan to expand in the US and bring EMS to Canada and Europe, which I thought was interesting. So that tells me that they're viewing EMS as like a level above perhaps, Mountain Warehouse. So Mountain Warehouse is more the entry level,
Huh.
all private
Right.
label retailer, and then they would have EMS that maybe sells some Mountain Warehouse, maybe sells EMS private brand, but is the more premium version. So I thought that was fun. They also revealed that the acquired 7 EMS stores and the website in the prior year brought in $27 million. So chunk of change. Interesting. And then also they recently announced that their revenues for their prior fiscal year, which ended at the end of February of this year, $510 million. So that's nothing to sneeze at for Mountain Warehouse,
No.
with profits of $35 million. So, I mean, given where everyone else is in the industry, they're apparently doing something right.
Listen, I like I told you guys before, I am rooting for EMS. I loved EMS. I would love to see them come back in a way and really be in a healthy way and have real adults here running the show and get it to where obviously the upside's always been there. I mean, that's a really good point. If there was ever a time to kill the EMS brand and rebrand it Mountain Warehouse, which is a clearly proven brand name in the retail space, this would have been it. And they see the value. So, my fingers are crossed here for sure.
The other piece that was buried in this release was the fact that that Mountain Warehouse's online business, which includes the Mountain Warehouse marketplace, now is a third of its revenue. So they've figured out the e-com piece too, and the marketplace piece, which was something that we talked about around backcountry. So, interesting company. It's definitely worth learning more about.
Next up on May 27th, REI's union problem. This episode featured a conversation that Justin Hausman and I had with Bryce Covert, who's a journalist and wrote about the ongoing REI union drama for Adventure Journal. Last week, the REI union Instagram feed was posting about labor issues in REI factories, and that group doesn't seem to be laying off our most visible retailer that we have. Do we think in 2025 that any of these issues presented by REI's union will, metastasize, so to speak, in the upcoming year?
I would say probably not. Retail chains are just notoriously hard to organize for labor unions because they have very high turnover, right? And you really have to have a pretty stable workforce because these union campaigns can take years potentially to bring to a vote and realization. And then after that, with all the delaying tactics, et cetera, maybe years more for an actual negotiated, bargaining. So I would say no, it's probably going to remain limited to a number of small flagship stores within the chain.
Number 3 on the list on August 1st, we had the episode Let People Try, with my guest was Teresa Baker. And coming up to last week's parting shot by you, Eoin, which directly referenced Teresa, we have the conversation that Teresa and I had about poor efforts being made to truly create change in our industry. So, Eoin, your parting shot was about how our industry will get left behind if we don't figure out what to do about our overly white and male problem. I guess I would ask you, if you went back into the CEO chair today, what would you do? What is the path here to that?
Really continue down the path that I had been on with Teresa in getting the ODA, the Outdoor Diversity Alliance, to a new level within the industry. My vision would be that the ODA becomes similar to the Conservation Alliance. So to those that aren't familiar, the Conservation Alliance funded by the outdoor industry, and all those funds really go into, or most of them go into a pool where there are then grants that are given out to conservation efforts across the country, like buying up land or helping to conserve existing areas of the country. So the thought would be, if we can get enough brands, more than the 10-ish or so that are there today, quite frankly, let's say we had 100 outdoor brands that were involved. Now we would have a pool of funds as an industry that we can invest in the grassroots organizations that are really doing the work, because there are a bunch of amazing grassroots organizations that are trying to drive inclusivity within the industry. This isn't something that we should be doing brand by brand or store by store necessarily. This is stuff that has to happen within these communities themselves. The problem is most of these grassroots organizations are always struggling for funding. And if a brand comes along, it's very transactional. It's like, oh, I'll give you this $5,000 to do this one thing, so you get this one social media post and do this next thing. Whereas they need ongoing funding, they need ongoing support, not this sort of transactional approach. So that was really the vision, would be to get ODA to that level.
This is one of those issues where our industry gets to put its money where its mouth is, and if we really do see ourselves as different from other industries, then this is a place where that needs to show up in a big way. Obviously sustainability is another one of those issues, and I do think that the industry overall does demonstrate levels of interest beyond others. Doesn't mean it's perfect. We talk a lot about what's not right, but that doesn't mean that it's still not trying to get there in a faster way. But this is another one where it's time to step up and really show ourselves to be the industry that we want to be.
Well, I think you make a good point. The Conservation Alliance is the best comp here, right? Because that was who was back in, again, you go to the heyday of outdoor retailer or whatever. It's like the Conservation Alliance was a presence. Anyone who had the resources, they were a member of the Conservation Alliance, right? And I'm sure that is still the case. So how do we replicate that on this front? Because it is equally important.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, home stretch here, guys. Last two. First up, number 2 on the list, September 16th, The North Face outdoor brand messaging. And this episode, we covered our reaction to The North Face's We Play Different video campaign, which is funnily enough, we forgot all about the last couple of months as we were talking about the North Face collaboration with Skims. And, as I'm defending that sort of the fashion collaboration, it's like, oh, yeah, it was only in September that you guys were telling us how hardcore you were with your new marketing campaign. So that's pretty funny. But the thing I want to ask you guys...
Colin, it's like deposits, and it's like debits and credits, right? So we're investing in the hardcore bucket, and then we get to withdraw from the hardcore bucket. So,
that's the case I think we were making when I was take the Skims piece out of it. If it's like, why are you guys... The North Face has always played this game.
Look,
like,
the
tagline...
I'm sorry, the tagline was "We Play Different," okay? And they just continued that. They did not stray from that at all.
And, nude, puffy, that whole thing, that's different. It all works.
That's right. That's exactly right. 0 scores on sustainability ratings. That is different than what I expected.
Different.
Right? I did not
The outdoor
expect
industry
that.
zigs, we zag.
That's right. That's right.
No, but I'm curious, like, this as an example of, that was, all the talk around that campaign. Are we reaching a tipping point with the old school hardcore messaging where it just won't work anymore? I mean, do you think there's always going to be room for broad action sport marketing campaign, or is it going to increasingly only play to the our demographic, the older demographic?
Look, I don't think we do it enough. I think we've gone the other. I think some of our industry problems are related to the fact that we don't sell the dream, that we don't provide inspiration as much as we provide all these other checkbox kind of issues. Right? Just because you're a lifestyle doesn't mean that you can't sell inspiration as to what really could be used for and what people do in the extreme, the edges. We don't watch shows in the sense just to see the everyday. I mean, we do in some regards, but it's like, no, selling the dream is an important part of our industry. And, Nike held up entire sports on its back over the last 30 years because it devoted dream-inspiring marketing campaigns, not just around an athlete, but around the sport that they participated in. And if we don't do that, why would people get excited about it? They need media. We need media. We need things like this in our culture to tell us and tell others kind of what we do and why it's important. So I think it's more inspirational messaging is what's needed, along with the other types of messages. Otherwise, we're just getting into that transactional trap. It's just like this. All this is buy this, so that look at your social feed. How many ads do you get are just buy? How about just step back for a second and give me a reason to want to believe, right? Frankly, and I think that's what they were doing with that piece.
I would agree with Dave on this, that you do want to have some inspirational marketing. You really do. And I was thinking to myself, is that just sort of the 50-something person's view of the world? But then I think back to Dope Snow, which was a brand we covered last week, and I got into their social media feed.
Right,
1.5 million followers on Instagram, and just a ton of likes and comments and whatever. And it's all basically people out on snowboards doing cool shit. I mean, that's the feed. I just described it. People on snowboards doing cool shit, backflips, all the
stuff.
Sounds great. And people love it. And that's that younger audience. So inspire people. People want to engage with that kind of stuff.
It's the younger audience, and it's classic action sport. I mean, if you want to go back to the beginnings in the 90s of this, we had media devoted essentially to sequence photography of just the shot of the jump or or whatever the trick
Right.
was. Like that was the world, and that's actually what denoted whether something was kind of core to the sport or not. Did a brand participate in essentially just an action shot with a logo attached to it and maybe a product off to the side? That needs to be a part of the, kind of defining what it is we do in this world. Now, we can improve on showing who does it and what types of people can be involved and where do we do it. Does it have to be always that ultra inspirational location? No, it doesn't. But you need to show what it takes to be a hiker or a kayaker or a climber, right? Or a runner. Like, that's sell the sport, sell what it is.
And no one has straddled the line on this since the beginning, since the 90s, than the North Face. This is why they can do the Skims collaboration and they can put this out. And all of us, will pontificate, and the inside baseball people will be like, oh, they're not hardcore. Oh, they're too the blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, they're still the North Face, and they have established the way to do both of these things best because they've got Kim Kardashian and Alex Honnold doing, working for him. Right? At the end of the day, I mean, they might be working a little more for Kim Kardashian at this point, but you get my meaning.
Can we put them together in one spot? That would be fun.
I would love that. Let's see that video. They would
around.
never. That'd be dumb. Keep those two separate. Just church and state. Keep it separate.
Yeah, have you ever seen them together? Is that a coincidence?
Oh, I see. I see.
Okay.
Alex Honnold secretly owns Skims.
I love that.
Back to my Moose Jaw days, one of our core values was be notable. And I think that is the key with marketing is it doesn't all have to be, to Dave's point, off in some crazy place, but at least have a point of view, make me think, make me engage. And I may not agree with you. I don't agree with the Skims thing, but it made me think about it. Even the We Play Different thing. The photography was great. You could argue with the script that it was a little bit overwrought, but it made you think and go, oh, should they be doing this? Shouldn't they be doing this? At least it made me think.
All right, we made it to number one, and we have two entries actually at number one. And number one, the first one, September 9th, the Backcountry acquisition that we talked about, and November 13th, the Mystery Ranch Yeti debacle, I guess. Basically, the subcategory is here, Rock Fight breaks the news. We're like, Adrian Wojnarowski around here, just constantly showering with our phones and waiting for our sources to come through with the biggest stories. And, we broke news twice this year. About the stories themselves, by all accounts, it's starting with Backcountry. It's rough times in Park City. I've been hearing from some folks. Backcountry's new owner is working to integrate the retailer into their world. Any predictions on regarding Backcountry, or hopes for Backcountry? Like, as we look ahead, what do we think we're going to see out of Backcountry?
From what I've heard, their sales are down anywhere from 30 to 40% from their high. But even at that point, they're still a major player online. So they've got a lot of scale. What we're seeing right now, though, is a new owner that is really trying to cut the cash burn because they've loaded it up with debt as part of the buyout, right? So there's a lot of debt. They need to cut that cash and start paying some checks. So unfortunately, that's meant a number of people losing their jobs, which obviously sucks. It sounds like they've cut the private brand team. I don't know. I think that means they're cutting the whole private brand strategy that was a little ill-fated to begin with, and maybe getting back to basics in terms of e-commerce. And I'm still waiting on the e-commerce marketplace that I think they're going to launch. I still say that's coming. We'll see if I'm right or wrong on that one. But the one thing that they haven't changed is the discounts. Wow. I mean, I was tracking it a little bit this fourth quarter. They had 7 different 20% off promos just in Q4.
Do you think that's about inventory or about
it's gotta be
flow?
Well, I think it's sales, cash flow. Yeah. I mean, I mean, they probably also had inventory too. The two are aligned, but yeah, they need cash flow is what they need. And there's no way that it was MAP compliant unless I mean, I don't know what brands were included or excluded, but yikes. It was every 4 or 5 days they would pop another 3-day promo.
Yeah, the reason why I immediately disagreed on inventory, and it makes sense if it's both, but I got to see the Backcountry store at the Grove in LA a couple of weeks ago.
Ooh.
Beautiful store.
Beautiful.
But all I heard were your words, Owen, in my ear, like, even if they hadn't been acquired, like, who who approved this? That's that mall and where that mall is. I mean, I don't know what the rent is.
Nut on
I mean,
that? What's the monthly nut on that?
I can't. There's no outdoor brand or specialty retailer or retailer that we talk about that should have a presence in that mall.
Except
it
for
just
Patagonia.
doesn't make sense. Yeah, and I don't know why it's even still open. I figured that would have been stop number one on the slash and burn tour, right? Just like close that thing down. But I guess they're probably beholden to their lease, so they have to like try and burn through the inventory.
Yeah, I think that the challenge that they have is the people that are stopping by and expecting to see a bunch of Patagonia and North Face and what have you. It's not there.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of backcountry stuff. So
there's a lot of that.
Yeah, but I think that's going to change. I would imagine that if they are forced to keep these leases, they're going to bring in somebody who's really going to get in there and say, okay, let's turn this into the best fucking outdoor store you can find within the Grove.
Well, moving into the other story, Yeti. So they have yet to publicly confirm their plans regarding Mystery Ranch. I know we just revisited this again last week, but I think there'd be some confused retailers if they did backtrack. At the end of the day, they'll probably sell more Yeti packs than Mystery Ranch packs, right? I mean, or Mystery Ranch packs. So what are our predictions? You know, I know this is a little more recent, but I'm curious, Owen, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen here as we kind of get into it with Yeti and Mystery Ranch?
They have been in the bag category. It hasn't really gone terribly well at this point. So it'll be interesting. I would say that whatever they come out with, I think it's going to be some kick-ass stuff. I mean, Yeti does that, right? And now they've got a kick-ass design team to do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. My big question is, how much is it going to cost, right? And is somebody going to step up and pay that? Because their everything they have is at a premium, right? So like they have a 20-liter backpack, a commuter backpack that sells for $230. The comparable item from Osprey is probably about 150, maybe 180 at the top end. So like, are we going to have expedition packs that are $800 from these guys? You know, where are we going with this thing?
Well, we'll be monitoring that. I guess the last thing to close things out, I mean, both of these stories that we did break on here did show how beholden, the media scene in the outdoors is to the brands. And we've talked about this before in the show, but I just want to say, I think similarly, if we want to see change in the industry, if we want to see more from brands on the sustainability or the equity side of things, like those with a voice need to say more and not default to acting in defense of their ad dollars. So I would, I think that's something to be said for, hey guys, let's be a little more critical of these folks. We can't be the only ones, I guess. That's maybe what I'm trying to say here. But that's all I got on the list. That's the top 10. Anything that we missed from your interactions on LinkedIn, Owen, that you want to make sure you mentioned? I'm sure we'll be talking more about it in the next couple of weeks. But what anything else?
No, I think you covered a lot of the big stories. I'll be coming out with maybe some of my own lists on LinkedIn, so check me out there. But no, I think this is a great list.
All right. Well, in that case, we'll wrap it up right there. Come back on Wednesday to hear the top 10 Adventure Rockfight episodes of 2024 with Justin Hausman. We want your emails. We want to hear your thoughts on this episode and every episode of The Rockfight. Send them to myrockfight@gmail.com. The Rockfight is a production of Rockfight LLC. Our producer today is producer David Karstad. Art direction provided by Sarah. What's the goddamn login, Colin Gensert? And for Owen Comerford, I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And he's back again for a New Year's edition of the Rockfight fight song. It's Chris DeMakes. He's going to sing it for you right now. We'll see you next time, Rockfighters.